And I will strike down with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers, and you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. So, at the risk of offending all you X-Men out there, I'm going to explain why Phil Spencer is not him, and why he shouldn't be leading Xbox, and why he's the sole reason for the sorry state of Xbox right now. And this isn't something I've recently concluded. This is something I've been saying for years, which is a pretty damn indictment on the guy. So, Phil has actually been managing Xbox Studios since 2008. Now, I don't, for some reason, I thought it was 2014, but that was just a promotion. He's been managing Xbox Studios since 2008. And when you look at the most successful period throughout the over 2 decades of the existence of Xbox, the most successful period was the first half of the Xbox 360 generation. And a big reason for that success, obviously given the fact that Sony fumbled the PS3 at launch, massive issues with the hardware in the early days of the PS3. But Xbox 360 in the first few years had wicked must play first party exclusives and second party exclusives, or at least timed exclusives in the with the likes of like BioShock and Mass Effect, and obviously first person like Gears and Halo 3. So, but Phil can't take credit for those. And for all the people who were the original Xbox, Phil can't take any credit for those either, even though he was working with some studios at that time, I believe, in Europe. So, yeah, and I say the first half of the Xbox 360 because the second half of that generation, the PS3, finally found its footing, and they ended up clawing back. Well, they still ended up with pretty much the same hardware sales as Xbox 360, but in terms of the games and the first party output from PlayStation, and that's one of the major reasons why the PS4 was such a success, is because of the failure of the first half of the PS3. They turned it around with the second half of the PS3, and then they took that into the PS4, and then you switch that over to 360, and you look at the back end of that console, and yeah, you had all the third party games, great third party games, but in terms of the first party output, and since then basically, it's just been 3 franchises pretty much in Gears, Halo and Forza. And when you think that Phil Spencer's the guy who's been managing Xbox Game Studios since 2008, and then all through the Xbox One generation, which was barren, and then launching the Xbox Series consoles with no launch games, and again he's been barren on the Series X. That's why I'm questioning why this guy's still in charge. But the main reason is the guy is a politician who will spin propaganda and make excuses rather than doing what he should be doing, which is leading Xbox, given that he's the head of Xbox now. And some examples of some of the things that exemplify this is when he says stuff like making games and creating new IP is hard. What's the head of Xbox doing saying that? So then just give up then. Just don't bother making games then. And I'll give an example, which is obviously a different level within game making. But I remember Cora Barlog, director of God of War 2018, I watched a documentary on that game. And he was saying how he wanted Mimir's head in the game to be attached to Kratos' body throughout that game. And the devs are coming back to him saying, there's no way we can do it. It's just, the resources involved, it's just going to be so difficult, we can't do it. But Corballo went away, took that in, but then he decided that to envision the game he wants to make, that needs to be in the game. So he's gone back to the devs and he's demanded that they find a way to do it. And they've ended up doing it. That's leadership. That's leadership. That's having a vision and getting people to follow through on that vision. And I don't see that same energy from Phil Spencer when he's coming out with comments like, oh, it's too difficult to make games, or we'll always be third in the console race because we lost the wrong generation to lose, and we'll always be behind Nintendo and Sony. What's he doing saying things like that? You're the head of a massive business and you should be striving to compete. But he's not doing that, and he hasn't been doing that for the amount of time he's been there. But yet he keeps on getting these promotions and he's still in the job now. And another thing with Phil, if you look at his entire leadership, particularly over the last decade, it seems like everything that he does and all these moves he makes, which he will spin, are all reactionary. Every single one. And you look at the reason why Game Pass exists in the first place is because hardware sales just stopped with the Xbox One, and therefore software sales stopped. So in order to drum up a way of coming up with how can we drum up revenue, they decided, we'll release a subscription model. And that way we'll get the same fans, but then they can chip in a bit of money every month. And, you know what I mean? Rather than make games that, people want to buy and buy your console for, no, we'll stick a subscription model on it. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure people have had some good deal out of Game Pass. I know I have. But I'm one of these people where I'll dip in here and there when there's something I want to play, as is the case with Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever. I'll dip in and out when there's something on there that I want to watch. I'm not going to just mindlessly keep on giving money every month for something that I'm not going to use. And it's the same with Game Pass. So I've done very well out of that. I'll tell you that now. But yeah, that's one example of him being reactionary. And another, I won't get into Game Pass, but I never like that model. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think it's going to ultimately give me the games and experiences I want on a regular basis. I think it's fundamentally going to hamstring devs if it's a case where you didn't have a $1 trillion company like Microsoft behind just pumping money into it, which we're going to start seeing now which we're already seeing now. That train is long since gone by. And again, just all the spin about, we're not focused on sales anymore, which is convenient, you know what I mean? Because if it was the other way around and you were market leader, you would definitely be announcing sales. And then recently, exclusives shouldn't exist anymore. It's funny that, because now that you want your games on every other platform, but you don't want to be seen as the only people doing it, because it is a sign of basically failure. Let's get it right. And exclusives shouldn't exist anymore. Another convenient spin. And we want Helldivers 2 on Xbox, and it should be, and you know what I mean, it's bad for the business and all this sort of thing. Again, just convenient spin. And then you've got to get into, so not only is the output been pretty damn shocking and sporadic from Xbox Game Studios over the year, and obviously you're going to expect that to change now that they've purchased Activision Blizzard and Bethesda, but still, even before those purchases, I had to question, with the amount of resources he had at his disposal, why not spend that money on creating new studios and new IPs. But again, I'll get into the reason why I think that is. And it feels like now, so we're in 2024, I feel still there, but now we're seeing Xbox games come to PlayStation, come to Nintendo. The writing's on the wall for the Xbox. And I think Phil's gonna go down as the man who basically killed the Xbox. I know they're already talking about the next console, but there's just been a report come out that hardware sales are down 30%. So this generation's basically done. And as it goes by, and as shareholders get wind of how well these Xbox games are doing on PlayStation and Nintendo, it's just the writing's on the wall. These games have to come out on these platforms to justify the purchase of Activision Blizzard. They have to. And when you make a purchase like that, that's when shareholders start asking questions. That's when the money men at Microsoft start going, yeah, we're banking on this to work now. This has to work now. Because they're taking a gamble with Game Pass, and that's kind of running its course. Because there's no way Game Pass is going to get allowed to be put on PlayStation. Doubt it gets put on Nintendo. They've already put it on PC, and it's ran its course, and now it's pretty clear that they're going to try and become the biggest. Well, if they're not already, they're probably going to become the biggest publisher on the planet, which makes sense for a company like Microsoft, because Microsoft has always been software over hardware, always, and always will be. So you can understand why the company would want to go that direction with the Xbox business model. No, just think of all the R&D that goes into these consoles. But there'll be another video which I'm going to predict what Xbox does with the new hardware. And also, I do think the future is green for Xbox. Probably not in the hardware space, which will upset a lot of X-Men out there. But yeah, this is all on Phil, guys. All on Phil. And you've got to question the guy's ability as a tastemaker. When you think how long he's been managing Xbox game studios, and you think of the games that he's funded in that time, and this is something I've got a problem with Sony with at the moment, because when I look at this generation, I'm specifically talking not just the first party games, it's the second party games, like the third party exclusives, if you will. Games like Forspoken, absolute shit. Ghostwire Tokyo, decent game, but I wouldn't be spending money to make that an exclusive. And then just recently, Rise of the Ronin, again, bang average. And I look back at some of the exclusives or time exclusives on the PS4 games like Nier Automata and stuff like that, or Persona 5. You know what I mean? So there's been a drop off from Sony, and this is partly why I'm saying this, why I'm frustrated with Xbox, because I'm not a fanboy. I want Xbox to do well, and I want Sony to do well, and Nintendo again if you're into that thing, because competition makes it better for me. The stronger Xbox are, the better Sony has to be, and vice versa. And you saw that with the PS3, Sony had to really work so hard to bring back that generation, and they did. And then they carried that on into the PS4, whereas Xbox just disappeared. And now we're in a situation where, again, this generation Xbox's output shocking, and Sony are kind of getting away with it, because Sony's generation there's been a massive drop off this generation, but there's still, it's like they don't have the competition, so there's no one pushing them to do that. I need Xbox to step up, and Phil has not been doing it. And ultimately, this comes down to the fact that there's only one thing you need to do as a hardware manufacturer who makes consoles, who wants to sell consoles. It's so simple, it's scary that this guy can't see it. And the only thing you need to do is produce must-play first-party exclusives, or buying second-party exclusives like you did back on the 360 with Bioshock and Mass Effect. That's all you need to do, and people will buy your console to play those games, and then they'll keep that console to buy all the third-party games and any more first-party exclusives you might have. Nintendo's been doing this for decades. PlayStation's been doing this for decades. And under Phil Spencer, they just haven't been doing it. And he's been making excuses as to why they've not been doing it. And that is criminal. He should not be running this company if he cannot understand that one simple thing. And he can try all these different business models, and he can try and finesse all the fans, and we're going to be so forward thinking, and we're trying to push the industry. He's talking about Xbox wants to lead the industry and push the industry forward. When has Xbox ever been in that position to do that? You need to do the basics first. And for a company that's been in existence for over 2 decades and only now has had to spend best part of 70 billion to buy a shitload of studios because they didn't have enough in the first place, why not? The reason why is Phil Spencer. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. It's nothing personal against him. He's a family guy. He's a successful man. He's had a brilliant career. I'm just from the outside looking in, and I'm saying he's not doing enough, and he's not done a good enough job, and I can't see him changing that. If he's been there for that long, he's been at Microsoft for over 3 decades. And if he still can't see these basic, simple things, and if you can't see them as fans, because if I was a die-hard Xbox, fucking mutant fanboy, you'd have to be questioning what's going on. Why aren't we getting all these amazing first-party exclusives? Why don't we have enough studios, or didn't have enough studios? Why are we having to spend all this money buying up already existing devs when we could have invested some of that money? I mean, think of that amount of money, and you could have invested in that, and just the opportunities is endless. And yet he's still there. And now, he's essentially trying to, finesse the fans, and trying to come out, there's only going to be some games coming, we're just going to test it to all these other platforms. They're all coming, guys. It's done. Xbox is a console. There's no way back. And listen, I'm going to explain in another video why it might not be the end of the world for that. But I genuinely don't know how Xbox go forward with this guy in charge. But I'm sure we'll find out, because he's probably not going anywhere, which is insane. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Please like and subscribe, please. And there will be more videos coming, all similar topics. And maybe I'll go in on Mr. Jim Ryan at PlayStation, just to even things out a little bit. But yeah, see you later, guys.